was wondering, do you think it's important for the grower or the marketer in the Netherlands to connect with the consumer? Because there's so many private, own label supermarkets, how does a marketer connect with the consumer? Does a retailer help, or does he get in the way sometimes?
Well, I know one example that a retailer really gets in the way. If you have an organic product, then the Albert Heijn, which is one of the biggest, doesn't want to put the name of the producer on the package. It only wants to state organic product. Albert Heijn Biologisch is what's on the package.
I think in Holland we have about 65 different varieties of tomatoes. There are 7 or 8 really important ones, and the rest is a little bit smaller, greener, and which means that everybody thinks they have a niche, but because there are only, let's say, 10 really important varieties, the other 50 are bulk production, which means that everybody is looking for a niche, but because they're looking for a niche market, it's bulk production.
The number of varieties, of course, is from the perspective of the grower and the breeder. The question is, how does the consumer perceive a brand, or how does he perceive a product? And I think we could have more varieties or more brands in the market. I used to come to a pepper grower in England who grew red, yellow and green peppers. And he said, by the day I made it up to 28 different types, I started earning money.
Yeah, in that situation, would it be a nice additional step if you would spend some money on radio advertising, for instance, in that area where the supermarket is, try to pull his product through the supermarket, perhaps with some demos, giving some notifications to it. Because that's, for instance, what we do at our place in Minnesota. And trust me, we're on the same market. We have the same issues as any other grower does, because we have the muscle from Eurofresh, Village Farms, Mastronardi, pushing into Minnesota. And particularly when you start opening the market, it becomes even worse, because then you become a dumping ground for those guys. So the price pressure is there all the time. But because we create that demand by following up with advertisement that we basically budget for ourselves as a small company, we create that pool through the supermarket.
But you are allowed by your supermarket to put your name on your product.
Yeah, but it's getting less and less also. They don't like it, but because we create enough demand, all you need to have, what my partner does most marketing, my partner always says, all you need to have is 1 or 2 customers asking the produce manager for your product. As long as you have 1 or 2, and if you need to, send your family out there. But all you need is 1 or 2 ask for your product. And then everybody's asking according to the guy. I mean, that's what he will tell us.
Well, there's one interesting trend in the local for local. You see the Willem and Drees, the 2 guys from Unilever, and they bring the local apple growers apples directly to supermarkets, and they add really the name of the grower. Right. That's one example of what's happening, but it's still very small in the Netherlands.
Right, and especially in Germany, you see now retailers getting more and more its own name as private label, and even Coca-Cola has having a problem to get the right place for the shop. I don't think that it's not realistic that we with flowers or with pot plants can achieve the same goal as Coca-Cola or Pepsi.
So you have to try it, I think.
Well, I think
at least.
No, it's impossible. For sure.
Well, if you say it's impossible, it means you say the end of the industry is coming up.
I'm not saying that.
I'm really sure that the whole marketing principles are going to change. Social media play a very important role in it. To build a brand is something different than what it is today than it was 20 years ago. And I also assume that if you produce locally, the brand might not be connected to the product itself, but more to the whole set of characteristics, because we are in a commodity trap, and we need to get out of the commodity trap.
You're saying it's impossible to go on a commodity level to that. But then again, I can reverse it also say, if you look at the US, you don't see a single tomato in the store there that is not a branded Village Farm or Eurofresh, Sunset, or a couple of the other big players that are out there on the market. There's there's not a single tomato there in the store that is not having a brand on it. You know where the tomato is coming from. I don't see any reason why that could not be the case in Europe, but you have to work on that together.
Also sustainability. I does not agree that it has no profit on it. Because the retailer wants to profile themselves. All the retailers have progress with sustainability. What they want is show me the performance of your suppliers. And that is what they communicate. So if growers has a good track record, a good performance of sustainability, they are in the front row to supply and to deliver. And that's what's going on.
Supermarkets play their role. They want to have the power to be power. And what you see that once there is an opportunity, it is registered as a satisfier. And as soon as most of the growers have the standard, they say, is that dissatisfied once you don't have the license to produce. Once you have a brand, you can use the additional value in your own advantage and prevent that shift from satisfying to dissatisfying.
The standards will be adjusted after a year, so it equalized and it's been moving on. And after 10 years, we could show the whole world on real data that the production went up with 30%, the energy use went down to 25%, and the use of oil.
And how do you make money from it?
Well, I see a problem right now with the elephant in the room, and they're trying to define a sustainability certification program. No, there's the other one though, right?
Veriflora?
Sorry?
Veriflora?
Veriflora. And that's the panel that has people, there were just 12 people, I think, who walked off the panel because they're struggling to set up the rules or the contingency factors to become certified. In the Netherlands, is there just the one standard? Is there competition for different standards? What's the effect of government agencies on setting up those standards? What was the creation of that, and were any of you involved? Or was it, I know it's non-profit, but who set the standards?
That is based on the data we collected from all the growers. It is private, supported by flowers, but it is a private company, and we have conquered in flower business the other world standard. So it is, we did it on our own strength. We have connections with the law, some connections, but it's mainly private sector.
All the growers, and that's one of the, I think, main difference with the US, the growers sit together, that they took their own responsibility, and they more or less started at yes. And because they started, our government said, hey, that's a good initiative, and we can support it, because you take your own responsibility instead of setting laws and requirements and so on and so on. From that point, it even started the other way around. The government was seeing that NGOs was collecting a lot of data, which they can use for giving strategic information to set targets 10 years or later.
As a banker working in the US and focusing on agricultural technologies, one of the things that I've noticed in, over this period of time is that we have very distinct silos that exist in the way our sort of operations move. So for instance, we have a scientist who develops a technology. It doesn't necessarily become a business because he's not really a business person. You may have a business that doesn't necessarily have any scientific grounds to its technology. And then sometimes you have a business person who is a scientist and things are moving great, but then the government steps in the way and there are all sorts of loopholes to jump through and it doesn't really become a successful business. And we've been speculating all week because we've been looking at this essentially, possibly this particular industry being a very streamlined example of how things work here. And we've all been speculating about how it seems like, government and policy is working hand in hand with research, which is working hand in hand with finance, which is working hand in hand with business. And since they're all sitting right here in front of me, my question is that true? And how would you define that openness between the various sectors? And what are the obstacles that you think still exist? Is it just speculation on our part? I mean, are we seeing a very clear picture? And does it really exist?
Most of the innovations in the Dutch horticulture came from learning by doing, because it was mainly related to production cost price and quality. And when it's within your own field and within your own risk, you can do it yourself. Once the marketing is more or less combined together, you're not direct competitors, you're colleagues. That's really the difference in Holland. The growers are colleagues, so knowledge is quite easily spread.
So what we see is that it becomes more and more difficult. On one hand, it becomes more difficult to find the money for running large innovation projects. And you have to deal with much more people, all with their own targets and all with their own, what's in for me.
So what has to be true in Dutch society or industry for that transition now to occur so that the innovation structures and programs are supporting the less open innovation?
Formerly you had the research, you had the extension services, and you had the education. And it was a kind of triangle together with the producers. And the bank, of course, and well.
There's always money involved.
We put in our 2 cents. And what you have seen is that, for instance, entirely the extension service has been split up. It was originally it was a governmental task. Now it's privatized. The same is with research. Originally, all research was paid for by the government, and it has moved into the direction of more privatized and private funding.
In America, a lot of my readers are, I won't say anti-sustainability, but they're nervous about it. They think it means you're going to take away my chemicals, you're going to tell me how to grow my plants, and I'm an independent businessman, so I avoid using the word sustainability in Grower Talks magazine. We've met with the cream of the crop here, but what does the typical smaller Dutch grower really think about this whole sustainability and having to get ultra efficient?
I think there is a natural resistance for change in any respect. And what we saw with a lot of changes which took place, like we changed over from growing soil to the hydroponic systems, there is a natural resistance. And once the grower sees that in the end it works out to be more cost effective, because a lot of sustainable issues turn out to be more cost effective, then quite easily adapts it. But when it's stuck, that it's sustainable but it doesn't bring money, then it's very difficult to get the message.
For example, but if you can make it really clear that this saving is going to come, then they're very eager. And we have set the goals for 2020 to build only energy neutral greenhouses. And when I talk to growers, this is really urgent to get rid of the gas, because the prices are really fluctuating. It's now quite low, but it used to be very high. So
there's less and less of a gap between conventional and sustainable, if you could say so. I mean, and as long as there are economics involved, but you need to give the growers, the entrepreneurs, sometimes to adapt. I mean, there are also always people that are on the front row and in the driver's seat and want to go for it. But there's also a big group right in the middle that needs some time to adapt, and especially if government or regulators come in and want to force it, then people start really getting anxious and nervous about it. But I think that's what I saw in America too. You know, pesticides, fertilizers, it's expensive. Water is not always available, so there's a drive already for the growers to become more sustainable.